Hey, welcome to the Get Fit with Jodelle all meat update. It's been a while, so I wanted to update you guys. And I don't have my blue blockers on just for a second. I want you to see how white my eyes are, okay? This is pretty cool. If you'd have seen me about 6 months ago when I had toxic mold exposure, they weren't so white. They were more like a red, got pulled over by a cop and asked to walk the line color, okay, with my toddler in the back. So I was telling the guy, I'm not loaded. I don't even drink. I don't drink a lick of alcohol. He's like, well, why are your eyes so red? And I'm like, I'd like to know why too. So anyway, needless to say, I passed that test and was successfully got allowed to drive home. But the thing was that was the breaking point for me. I'm like, what's wrong with my eyes? And from then on, it led me into research, like what's going on with my body. And that's kind of what led me to carnivore in the first place. Is that I was thinking something's wrong with my liver, something's wrong with my amino acid profile. I need to up that. And for me, the carnivore approach kind of just seemed like a logical sense. So I will say that this approach, this way of eating, has helped my eyes immensely. But you might be surprised to know I'm not still doing it. Yeah, how about that? So that's part of the update today. I'm going to go ahead and put my blue blockers back on because I am big on covering up your body when you're exposed to blue light and electromagnetic radiation, which is what I'm doing right now. So what has happened? It has now been since the middle of December when I started this, and today it is April 25th, 2018. So I am what I call now a carnivore with benefits. So maybe some of you can relate. And I'll tell you why, okay? I had no cravings. I didn't want to go back to eating other food, but it made logical sense to me that where I live in the Midwest, spring was coming, things were growing. I had availability for these seasonal local grown things. And I thought it doesn't make sense to me not to have them, just like it didn't make sense for me to have vegetables in the winter when my husband was bringing home a deer. I thought to myself, this would be the only thing I would have if we lived in a teepee out in the woods. So I want to focus on just eating what I would have access to if I had to live off the land. And sidebar, I have learned how to bow hunt now. So this coming winter or fall, whenever bow seasons open up, I'm hoping to go hunt and maybe access my first kill, but not before blessing the animal and saying thank you to my creator for it and using every ounce of it that I can, because this is going to be a big deal for me. I've never killed anything, so I'm a little bit nervous, but the main issue is I'm going to use every part of it and make it worth the animal's life. So I'm going to turn up my brightness here just for a second, even though my computer is in my eyeball, which I can see it in my blue blockers. But I wanted to say that because of that, it doesn't make logical sense for me to continue eating in such a manner as just having meat, when right now our farmers markets are bringing out my little local area that grows lots of asparagus is going on right now, and strawberries are actually in season. And while I haven't added a lot of things, I have added the things that I have access to that are growing in my latitude right now. It makes sense to me. And recently I had Dr. Jack Cruz on a podcast, so that's a good one to go watch. And he confirmed this to me because I asked him, I said, I'm advocating for some people to try even just more of a carnivorous approach, not necessarily being full carnivore, but for women in particular, from a female perspective, I wanted to advocate for women to include more meat in their protocol. And he agreed. He thought it was an excellent choice. However, he said, we're going into longer light cycles. And what needs to happen now is we need to have those carbohydrates that are supplied in this light cycle, in this latitude line where you are, not where we all, not the same foods for all of us, because what's growing in Florida right now is not growing in the Midwest for me. So it's like what you have access to. And he confirmed that. And I felt really happy about that because not that I wanted any other foods. I would say, to be honest, the only food I was probably craving would be like a dark chocolate. So, I mean, that was the only issue I was craving, but it wasn't strong enough that I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die if I don't have dark chocolate. And since then that's not one of the foods I've really added, except for maybe once or twice, so, I did it more as an approach of I want to match my body to the circadian rhythm cycles of the earth, the seasonal changes, the local availability. Unfortunately, I don't have a green thumb, so I'm not growing a garden. I'm going to work on that. Hopefully I can develop that, just like I'm developing into a bow hunter, but it's not happening right now. And so I'm just seeing what I have access to locally that I can include. And honestly, I felt really great. And honestly, my eyes have got even better. Now, have I added lots of it? No, because what I was doing before carnivore was, like I said, mass quantities of vegetables. Like I wouldn't just have asparagus. I'd have like the whole heap of asparagus, the whole thing that you buy at the store or at the farmer's market, like the whole little rubber band package. And, or if I had Brussels sprouts, I had like the whole tree of Brussels. I didn't just have like 5. And so now when I'm having certain vegetables, like let's say I have green beans or something that are local, I will just saute like a cup of them and that's it. And that might be the only vegetable I have all day long. The rest of it is still a very meat-based approach with duck eggs and steak. And I'm not really doing pork because I found that that doesn't resonate with me. In fact, every time I eat pork, my eyes get red again. So that was an issue. I knew it was affecting my immune system. So I'm not doing that. And sorry about the computer and my eyeballs. If there's a way I can like go this way. And I found a few other foods, which I'll talk about, that are not on my list, even though they're on a lot of keto lists and things like that. But I, in particular, wanted to tune into those foods that made me feel good. I wanted to tune into the meats that made me feel good, and then the foods outside of the meat. And honestly, what surprised me is I've tried some fruits, and they've done really well with my system. Like Bartlett pears, where I live, are coming into season right now. So I've tried a few. They tasted amazing, and I felt really good eating them. It was like a good carbohydrate source for me. So I've coined what I call a VLP, a very low plant diet, or WOE, way of eating, for me. Okay, so I'm calling it a VLP because I think that we can benefit from a little bit of plants here and there when it's the season for them, and when it's the type of plant that resonates with your body and your latitude line that you're at. Like I believe I'm at the 36th latitude parallel, I think they call it, or parallel latitude. I'm still learning that from Dr. Cruz. So, but what grows there is not necessarily growing in like where he is, which I think is the 28th latitude. So I have to be mindful of that. I have to be mindful of what's growing in my light cycle. And I feel optimal doing that because I spend a lot of energy focusing on circadian rhythm and seasonal approaches. And it makes sense to me in another way as well, because I just had my 23andMe done and it came back and I found out that I'm French, oui, oui, and British. So that sounds like fun because I love to have a British accent, which is probably not very good for those of you listening, but I think that it's fun. So then I'm very German. So that's fun because that's like a lot of organ meats. They do a lot of fermenting things. And then I am just a small smidgen of Netherlands and a little tiny piece of Norwegian. So I thought I actually have a little bit of Russian too. That was cool. And I actually speak a little bit of Russian. So that made me happy. But so to say why that's important to me is I look at those cultures and that's just mostly Northern European. I mean, take out the fact that I'm all these little different mismatches. I mean, that's what we all are. We all are like a little melting pot, or most of us. But the mainstay is I'm Northern European. So I have to keep that in mind too, that while where I live is kind of the same almost climate as that. I kind of looked up the latitudinal line of where I am now, and it kind of matches that climate of where I came from, where my ancestors came from. So that's kind of cool. I can kind of stick to those more orchard fruits and more, they did a lot of wild game in Northern Europe. And so I do really well on wild game. I do really well on fatty fish like salmon and sardines. And you go to Norway and it's like, that's the mainstay. It's like you can find smoked fish anywhere. And I love that. And it resonates with me. And so I was like, this is what I want to focus on, is like, where do we come from? What can we like hone in on the foods that really resonate with our ancestry? And then also our latitudinal line, where we are, what we grow here in this light cycle. And then beyond that, finding those foods that, like I say, the foods that love you back. Don't include foods in your way of eating, your woe, that don't love you back. Okay, that's what I did in my last video, your way of truth. Be truthful with yourself and say, you know what, as much as I love these protein bars that I could include every day in my meal plan, they give me gas every time I eat them. So it's probably not something that loves me back. Okay, be real with yourself. Maybe it's a type of meat, like I mentioned with pork. I love pork, but I recently found out some things that made me not love it so much. In fact, I did a blog post on it that I haven't posted yet, but I'm going to. But you should know that 50% of our pork comes from China. Red flag right away when I heard that. Okay, and then how about the fact that 88% of the antibiotic use, 88% of the antibiotic use in the food and drug the food industry is on pork. Okay, 88%. That's a huge, that means like virtually all the pork that you're buying is loaded with antibiotics. Do you want to know why? Because, and do your homework on this, I'm not making this up, but most pork is in confined cages by themselves. They're in these CAFOs, but they're not really with each other. They're more or less in their own confined little containment where they lay down because they're so fat they can't move, and their fat like smushes through the bars of the cage that they're in. And they're fed antibiotics because they're laying in pretty much their own filth getting sick, and they have to keep feeding them antibiotics to remedy that, to keep them alive. When I learned that, I was like, I'm really not okay with this. Now, is that all pigs all across the world? No, because there's good brands out there like Epic Bar and the other pasture raised people that really value the animals that they're taking care of. And those are the ones that you want to choose and invest in and spend your dollars towards, because they're treating the animal fairly. And you're probably getting a much higher quality pork that's not going to affect you like if you have issues with pork like I do. So in the future, if I do pork, which I haven't for a while, I've just made the decision not to. But if I do, I'm going to do something like Epic brand, pork rinds or something like that, or somewhere local that actually raises pigs themselves, and I can go to the farm and check out and see how they're run. Or when my husband goes and hunts for a wild boar, I might eat that because they're eating like twigs and berries. So I'm okay with that. It's these kind of things we have to get into thinking. It's not, like I said, what's the perfect diet that we should all be on, and it's carnivore and the whole world should be on carnivore. No, because like I mentioned, there's plenty of vegans that are flourishing out there, and I love that. There's plenty of paleo people that are making their, almond butter cupcake brownies that are paleo. I love that. If that works for you, if you don't get any bloating or anything like after that and the food loves you back, go for it. The main thing is that you're choosing quality. And this was the blog post I'm going to write and put out, is that it kind of goes along with the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. The dilemma isn't what should we eat. The dilemma is what kind of food should we eat? Like, what's the quality of it? If I'm going to eat fast food, like I did a meal plan for a guy once, and he said, I'll only eat at Corner Bakery. So unless you can make me a complete meal plan that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner at Corner Bakery, just forget it. I said, I can do that if that's what you're going to do. And so I chose the highest quality foods that I could find on the Corner Bakery menu. It took me 8 hours to put this meal plan together. And he flourished, like his health improved. So just, finding your way of truth of like, this is it. This is what I can do. I can't do a full carnivore diet, but I could do a VLP, a very low plant carnivorous approach, carnivore with benefits. So I'm having my little bit of dark chocolate because it doesn't bother me. It loves me back. I feel really good when I eat it. It feeds my gut bacteria, whatever. Or I do really well on fruit, but I don't do really well on vegetables. Fine. Figure out what that is for you, and that's what's going to help you flourish. And that's your way of truth. That's your WOT instead of your WOE. Doesn't really matter so much. So in a nutshell, I have added things like I mentioned, anything that's seasonal right now in April and May. You can go to your local farmers and ask for I think it's called their farm chart or their food chart of what's growing right now, or go to the farmer's market and just look around. You'll see what's growing right now, because they're not going to like pull things out of their freezer from last year. They're going to actually bring you stuff that's growing right now. Or you can look up online and just say, seasonal foods in Ohio in April and May, or wherever you're from. That way you're going to know what exactly you should have access to and what you could bring in. And, think in terms of meat too. There's meat that's seasonal too. If you'll check out Polyface Farms, I know we've all heard of them through the movie Food Inc. and also the book, The Omnivore's Dilemma. There's a big piece on that in there. But they will tell you that there's a certain time of year that they won't sell a lot of beef because it's the wrong season. So figure that out for you. I mean, that's why I eat a lot of deer meat right now, because my husband just killed it this past winter and fall from our local area. So I know that it's a local meat to my area, and I feel really good when I eat that. Um, for a while I was having, butcher box shipped in when I was doing more meat than I am now. I'm still doing a lot, but not as much as I was. But then I got to thinking about it, and I was like, tasted fine, whatever. It was nice to have it shipped to my door, but what's the carbon footprint on that? Like, how far is it coming to get to me? And that I could just, do a little more legwork myself and go to my local farms and pick it up. I mean, I have farms now, they're becoming a little bit more prevalent than they were years ago. You can find grass-fed farms, or even just good quality farms, even if they're not like full grass-fed. Maybe they're just a little bit of grain-fed. Oh, well, at least it's local, and you're supporting your community, and you're living according to the light cycle of where you are. So that's what I wanted you guys to kind of take a tip from today. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the carnivore approach has healed my thyroid. My thyroid no longer has any issues, which is really cool. But I want to take you through a few other things I did outside of just building up that amino acid profile through a high meat and high fat approach. Just so you know, you can go to my Instagram and scroll way down, and you'll see that I started at 10.93 on my TSH. Now, the only reason I posted just my TSH is because I didn't have any other issues. My T3 and T4 were fine. My reverse T3 was fine. I had no thyroid antibodies. This was just an effect of some part of my pituitary not getting, or my thyroid not responding to my pituitary based on this toxic mold exposure I had, which I'll touch on in just a second because I learned something else from that. So I just needed to get that working. I needed to get that signal working. And I feel like changing that amino acid profile and getting more of that high meat content did that. But I did some other things that I wanted to touch on for those of you who have thyroid issues. So back to my point of, like, if you scroll down through my Instagram, I started at 10.93. Yikes, that's a very off the charts TSH. Very hypothyroid, very low thyroid function, all the way down to now 1.04. Okay. And actually I've done it since then, and it's a bit lower than that too. So I'm right where I need to be. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm going to continue testing just to see where I'm at. But I also learned that I had something called cytomegalovirus and Epstein-Barr floating through my system that came to fruition when I had the toxic mold exposure. So all of my health issues, and especially like with regard to my eyes, started with this toxic mold exposure that happened to me, and it suppressed my immune system, which caused my underlying infections of cytomegalovirus, which many of us are walking around with. We just have no idea that we are. And Epstein-Barr, I had no idea because I didn't get tired. I didn't have all the symptoms, but blood tests reveal it came back that I had that. And it came to fruition with the suppressed immunity from the toxic mold exposure. So what happened was, when I found that, I was like, this is so good that my intuition said to do this more of carnivorous approach, because on so many levels, I helped calm down the immune system in my gut. Okay, that's where a lot of your immune cells are housed. And so the best thing I did was kind of calm down that gut and probably heal any leaky gut that a lot of this high plant intake that I was doing had caused. So I feel really good about the approach that I inherently took, not really knowing all of these things until after I got my blood work back. But I will say that, just for those of you wondering, cytomegalovirus is actually one of the top reasons why people have eye issues. You'll get like floaters and blurred vision, and your eyes will get really red, and it's from your liver. Your liver is actually really toxic from the virus coming to life within you. And it's something that I think needs to be addressed more, because I'm hearing it more and more. Because we're in a high stress environment, we're exposing ourselves to so much blue light and radiation. Our immune systems are suppressing. That's why we're having so much infertility and so many other issues that, there's no reason why I feel this way, and suddenly I do. And that's what had happened to me. I was like a runner, feeling really good, had no issues. I moved into an area while we were building our house, I was living in someone else's home and I got toxic mold exposure. And that's when my whole health went downhill. I never lost energy, but my whole body just like became toxic, where I was holding onto cellulite that I hadn't ever had in my whole life, never had cellulite. And then my eyes were so red, my face was puffy like a moon face. And it's only recently that all of that has really cleared up for me. So, and part of that was the carnivorous approach, but part of that was some other things that I've done that I want to talk about, because like I said, nutrition's 1/3. The 2/3 you need to focus on are some little tips I want to give you today. So I'm going to jump right into that before I just keep going on a tangent about my health, you know? Okay, so let me pull up my sheet here. So Mito-hacks, because I'm always talking about mitochondria, right? And we need to do, instead of biohacks, we need to always be focusing on the mitochondria. And I didn't coin this. This is Dr. Jack Cruz, which I hope he will grace me with his presence again on my podcast, because he was phenomenal. I mean, he was just a joy to record and interview. So mito-hack in general means that the things that you're doing are affecting your mitochondria, which are the little energy factories of every single, well, virtually every single cell of your body, maybe not all. And these are this is the energy that we need to have energy, to expend energy, to feel good, to digest well, to see well, to continue flourishing even as we age, you know, to almost like anti-age while you're aging. You know, we're never going to be perfect, but we can at least be 110 and feel optimal instead of being on 50 different medications in a nursing home. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I really don't want that. Okay. Not for myself anyway. So for these mito-hacks, what I really discovered was, number one, something that I had been researching for a while and finally decided to give it a try, and I'm so glad I did. And I really want to talk about this because I haven't found a lot of information on it. So I think it's kind of really important to touch on. And it's something called red light therapy. Okay. Maybe you've seen it at local spas, or you've heard people talk about it in kind of the paleo circuit, or the maybe more mito hackers are talking about it. I just haven't heard a whole lot about it. I've heard Jack Cruz talk about it, and I've heard a few others, but it's not mainstream enough. And red light really is one of the lights that comes from this full spectrum light of the sun. So, I mean, when you get sunlight, like I've mentioned before, it's one of the best things you can do for your body. You're getting some of that red light, but in a concentrated dose, there's actually real amazing studies about what it does for different ailments in your body, pain, inflammation, but more importantly, tons of studies on the thyroid. So what I'm holding here is something called the Nova Red, and it's, I think, actually the company I think that makes it's like DLP or something, but it's called the Nova Red. And this is a little handheld battery operated red light therapy. So I'm going to flick this on, and if I press on it, I'm going to blind you, so hopefully you have your blue blockers on. But see, it only stays on when it has skin to skin contact, and I love this little thing. What I've done over the past few months is I've simply placed this right on my thyroid. And I hold it there. This has a timer on it. So I just hold it there and I read a book, or I lay quietly in bed and I don't do anything. And the cool thing about this is, since it's battery operated, there's really no radiation. So I don't have to worry about, electromagnetic radiation on me when I'm doing it. But I put it right on my thyroid, and it shuts off after 3 minutes, and then I'm done. Okay. And then another thing I've done, which might or might not get some people going, you can't do that, but it's actually really helped me. So I'm going to continue doing it. I've seen no detrimental benefits. Wow, I just created like a new phrase. No detrimental effects from this, although maybe having it close to my eye is not the best idea. But I have taken this and I turn it on and I put it and I close my eye, make sure it's closed, but I put it to where it's either over my eye with my eye closed or underneath. But that way this penetrates up to 30 centimeters. Okay. Which my eyelids are not 30 centimeters. So it's definitely getting into my eye. And I can tell you, it has greatly improved the whites of my eyes and the underside of my eyes that had gotten really puffy from basically the inflammation that my liver was suffering from, because a lot of like what your liver's going through will come out in your face. Now, for purposes of this, I wanted you to see my eyes with no makeup. I don't have any makeup on right now. None. I have chapstick on. That's all I have. so for purposes of this podcast, I wanted you to see what my face looks like. And so, and you can go back through my Instagram and see like how it's progressed from this, you know, huge plant diet all the way to eating more of this carnivorous approach. And that way you can see the difference in what my skin was prior to, and now it's a huge difference. But I just wanted to show you that. But anyway, red light therapy, look into that if you have thyroid issues, or if you have any sort of chronic issue, skin issues, acne, things like that. This thing is so powerful and still on, apparently, because I just touched it. I didn't know it was on. That's one thing I did for my thyroid. And if you don't believe me, just check out some red light therapy studies. I think I can look them up and put them down below because I have a whole slew of them in my notes here. Another thing I did to reduce my radiation exposure is called the pop phone. Okay. I'm taking it back to the old school because I'm an old fool who's so cool. Okay. I plug this into my iPhone and I don't have to have headphones that emit radiation. This blocks 99% of all radiation. I think it's called COCO, C-O-C-O, pop phone. And you plug it into the headphone outlet of your phone. And then you can just talk on it like you're working as a secretary back at a lawyer's office in 1983. So I love that. But this, you know, I was thinking when I'm like this, I've got this thing where real close to an area that I'm trying to protect. So I decided to invest in one of these so that I can be a little safer when I'm doing phone consults. So for those of you who are my clients and you're phone consulting with me, now you have an image of what I look like when I'm consulting with you. I'm actually on a little handheld device. Other things I've done, you can see that I have a scarf around my neck. Anytime I'm on my computer now, I'm blocking the blue light from my computer that's telling my the melanopsin in my skin that there is a large dose of radiation. Because what if it's like, or I'm sorry, not just radiation, but blue light. Because what if it's like 6 o'clock at night and my body senses that it's wind down time, but I'm getting that blue light exposure. It's not just my eyes that recognizes it. And I've actually got my eyes blocked. My skin still can recognize it. And so I want to keep that circadian rhythm good. And I want to keep the radiation kind of away from that thyroid area too. So I actually just have a scarf on and I cover up most of my body when I'm on the computer. Then when I go outside, I do not cover up. I try to go out and get as much skin exposed as I can without freaking out my neighbors, you know, like, but that way I feel really optimal as far as what I'm doing for my health. And I've seen vast improvements. So I know that these little things, you know, the things we don't think about, you know, everybody thinks that it has to do with just nutrition or just exercise, but these little things like grounding and things I'm going to be talking about in a second, these are like small changes that yield huge results. And over time, you're going to notice a difference. And you won't even really think that, wow, I had no idea that this was going to happen. So anyway, moving right along, covering up your skin, obviously the blue blockers, Swanwick Sleep, just go to my shop page. There's a link in there and then type in get fit to save 10%. I love those guys. Hopefully I'd like to interview James Swanwick, so I might do that too. Another thing I've been doing is cold showers to my neck. What does that mean? That means I get in the shower, I get all clean, and then the last part of the shower, I blast cold water right here, ice cold water. And that's a really great thing to do to kind of wake up your thyroid and get some circulation in there and some healing. Anytime we increase circulation to a certain area, we increase healing. That blood flow is healing. I like to do that right after I've been in my sauna. I have an infrared sauna that is just a really nice way to heat up and get passive sweating. You know, active sweating is when you're actually working and out and making yourself sweat. But this is passive sweating. So it's a kind of a de-stressor to your body and a great way to get out toxins. So you don't always release toxins with active sweating, but with passive sweating you will. Infrared sunlight, that infrared, just being in the sun is your own little nature sauna. So again, we need that sunlight. But if you have an infrared sauna, it's more of a concentrated form. And sometimes I'll take my little red light in there, go into the sauna, put this on it, and I'm doing the sauna. Then I get out, I take my cold shower, I put it right on the thyroid, and I really feel like this has, now I have no scientific proof, so just take my word for it or not, but I really feel like this has contributed to the health of my thyroid. So it's worth a shot, and there's actually published studies behind it. So, and then another thing that I have done is something that I've coined as ESPN. Okay, so not the sports channel, but getting my vitamins, ESPN. So that's a good acronym to remember. So vitamin E is not what you think, not the thing that you've heard about, but vitamin E is earthing or grounding. So you've heard me talk about that. Go outside, put your feet on the earth. For every hour you're on the computer, 5 minutes outside. Then we have S, which is sunlight. And then we have, so going outside, getting sunlight. And then vitamin P is pleasure, passion, purpose. What's your passion? What's your pleasure? What's your purpose? Those things are super important when it comes to the health of your body. And these are more in line of your way of truth, your what. And then vitamin N, nature. We are made to be outside. We are made to be in nature. We are made to go hike across the tectonic plates and get that exposure at, hopefully with even some of our bare feet, not just being in shoes all the time, but actually getting out in nature, getting the essential oils that come out of the pine trees, putting your feet at the water's edge, even if it's cold, river water. It's amazing the negative ions that come off of a body of water and can heal your body. So when it comes to healing your thyroid or any kind of issue that you're having, it's not about the latest thyroid supplement that's on the market. It's not about, getting on some sort of Synthroid and staying on it the rest of your life. It's not about even the best thyroid diet that's out there. Really, it comes down to what you're doing outside of the kitchen. Like, what's your lifestyle habits? How are you addressing the stress in your life? What kind of sleep are you getting? All of these things play into the fact, not just thyroid, but overall health in general. So I really want to encourage you guys to think outside the box with your way of eating, with your way of truth, and look into something more along the lines. If you are thinking that you want to try carnivore, or you've been doing it and now you're like, what's the next thing? What do I do next? Do I stay with this? Maybe you do. Like I've mentioned, there's plenty of people out there in these forums and in the groups, and even people I know and trust who have made this a lifestyle. And if that's you, I love that. Okay. I love that you found your way of truth. But if you're struggling, or if you've been, where I kind of was, I like the feeling of this carnivore approach, but aesthetically, I'm not feeling that this is the best option for me. I wanted the more aesthetic look, and I can achieve that. In fact, I've lost the weight that I put on, and yet still I'm reaping all the benefits of doing more of this carnivore with benefits kind of thing. So I hope that helps, and I hope that you enjoy these updates. I'm probably kind of done updating you. I'm going to keep doing podcasts where I bring new people on. In fact, pretty soon I'll have Dr. Paul Mabry coming on the podcast. So I just recorded with him, and that was pretty interesting. And he's part of borntoeatmeat.com. So check that out, because I'm going to have him on or uploaded pretty soon. And I've got another couple of great doctors lined up for you. Hopefully Dr. Cruz will come back too. So stay with those. But as far as my updates, you kind of know what I'm doing now. And it feels really good just to have more of this VLP, this very low plant approach, and some just seasonal variations. So it'll kind of keep changing as the time goes on. And my plan is this coming winter, when I don't have access to this vegetation anymore, it's back to full carnivore for me. Like, whatever I could naturally get out in the wild, that's what I'm focusing on in my kitchen. And outside of that, it doesn't matter. Like, I just want to be optimal with where I am, who I am, what I do for a living, and the people that I'm involved with. I want to be able to not have to be the difficult person that everybody goes out with and go, oh yeah, she's the meat eater, so we can't have her over for dinner, because what are we going to do? Just feed her meat? I want to be social. I want to be, I want to love the people that I'm with, and I don't want them to have to feel awkward around me. Okay. So I'm okay with the fact that I have to eat foods that maybe I'm not really craving, but yet it's that seasonal variation. And plus it makes others around me feel a little more comfortable. Plus you have to remember, I have a little 3-year-old Shadow everywhere I go, and she sees everything that I'm eating. And it's really hard to get your toddler to try new things when you're just eating a very simple eating approach. So I keep that in mind. I want her to be metabolically flexible. I want myself to be metabolically flexible. I want to have times when, like I did this past weekend, I went to a place that makes homemade granola and yogurt, and I had it. Yeah, I had granola and yogurt, and it was amazing. Did I have any health repercussions after? No, I felt good. I have healed my body enough with this, what I call the carnivore therapeutic approach. Like, you could do this as a therapy for yourself and heal a lot of the things that are going on, and then help yourself with adding little bits back in at a time and focusing on those mitochondria strategies that I was just talking about to amp up your system all across the board, your digestive system, your organ system, your cellular energy. And that way you can start to add those foods in and your body goes, yeah, I'm okay with this. I'm okay with this. Am I going to do yogurt and granola every day? No, I don't crave it and I don't need it, but I just wanted to have it that day and it felt good and I had no issues with it. So yeah, it was just cool to be able to do that. And that's where I want to be. I want to be able to go to somebody's house and they go, oh, it's a gluten-free lasagna, but it's a lasagna. I'll be like, cool, I'll have a piece. No big deal. Tomorrow I'll go back to like eating my duck eggs and my salmon and my deer meat and my beef and all that. So not a big deal. Like let life live a little bit and then love the ones you're with. And then in the meantime, find who you are on this latitudinal line and focus on that way of truth. What's your what? So thanks for listening. And I'll be sure to check out my Instagram until May 5th. I have a special promo going on with my podcast sponsor, F-Bomb, dropinfbomb.com. So you don't have to be a nut butter lover. They have really great t-shirts too for those of you who are keto or paleo or carnivore. It says #keto, fat on, powered by fat. So it's really fun stuff too. So 5 people can win by May 5th. You just have to enter through the little Instagram thing that I have going on my Instagram page at Get Fit with Jodelle. Okay, I'm done for now. Later, dudes.
Hey, would you like to win a free box of F-Bombs? My generous sponsors of the podcast, dropinfbomb.com, have agreed to give away 5 boxes to my listeners and to my followers here on Instagram. So if you want to enter, here's what you're going to do. Like my page and like F-Bomb's page, Fat is Smart Fuel, all one word, then direct message me and say, I want to drop an F-Bomb. Okay, that's your code to enter. So maybe you've already liked both pages. That's totally cool. Just make sure you enter by spreading the love and telling your friends, share this page on your page and have them direct message me and say, we want to drop an F-bomb, and make sure they enter your name and theirs. And so then you have chances, and I will randomly draw 5 winners on May 5th to have a drop an F-bomb shipment drop shipped right to your door, your own favorite flavor. So drop an F-bomb in a healthy way. Get yourself your very own box today by entering. Thanks for listening.